when you're pitching somebody, again, just put yourself in their shoes. They may be on the telephone, or they may have come to some sort of pitching event, and they're kind of interested in putting some money in, but just sort of interested to sort of see what's going on. And you need to move them from that kind of sort of sit back state into going, wow, this could really be big. So because there are so many different ideas out there, it's very hard to know exactly how you present that, and each has its own case. But I think there's a golden rule anyway in presenting to either an individual or to a group, which is to understand how to make it relevant to them. And so there's got to be something, I think, at the front that says, this is for you. And it normally starts off like, if you're like this, then this might be for you. Now, I've mentioned on more than one occasion that we raised an awful lot of money at the beginning of the year, which was actually right in the middle of the economic deep freeze. At the time, we raised 2.75 million off 58 separate investors, at a point when you speak to most angel networks who are saying now in retrospect that there are no deals done at that time. And in fact, most of the people that we were talking to put money in were people in the financial markets who weren't just thinking the world was in a deep freeze, but possibly heading towards an economic ice age. So that's the reality of the situation. So how are you going to deal with that in order to actually pry somebody away from, well, I'm probably not going to invest, but I'm just here sort of just for the enjoyment of it. How do you actually move them in the first place? So, again, it's all about doing your homework and understanding what makes the proposition interesting. And one of the things for our entertainment business was we got the one person who gets week by week access to the every sale in the West End, and I had him write a report on what the current state of the market was, not like last year or last half year or last quarter, but the current state. And it made great reading, in fact. At the beginning of 2009, the feel-good family entertainment market was up 2.6% from the same time in 2008, which itself sat on a series of 5 all-time box office records. Now, that gave me my in for a presentation, which was, it's good to know, isn't it, that in the middle of this economic ice age, there's at least one sector which is booming. Now, that immediately makes somebody think, well, hopefully, makes somebody think, okay, maybe this is where the clever money is going to be. So I think that's really, really important. And if you're doing it face-to-face, just with one person at a time, find out what's important to them. I generally make it a rule never to pitch my idea to somebody if I'm in a face-to-face meeting with them for at least the first 20, 30 minutes. First thing I want to do is sit down, have a coffee with them, or wherever, if hopefully it's in a cafe and it's kind of a relaxed space, maybe it's a bit more formal in an office. And if they give you the time of day, first thing to do is really find out about them, because on the whole, somebody who's been clever enough to have enough money to actually invest is going to be really interesting, and his point of view is going to be really, really interesting to listen to, and you're probably going to learn a lot. So I like these people. I find them really, really stimulating, really interesting people, and often really charming. So I love to really find out about them. And then it's only probably after about 15, 20 minutes you say, well, actually, we're here to talk about this investment, and before I sort of launch into something which may be totally irrelevant to you, you asked me along for a meeting today, and my question for you is, what is it that's interesting in what do you think is interesting in what we're doing, so that I can sort of understand more about where you think you might want to go with this. The thing about getting investment is you're selling something, and it's just no different from any sales situation. And the first thing you've got to do is you've got to understand what it is that they're interested in. There's a classic story of a friend of mine who's a non-exec for a cake company, and he went to see a very large prospective new client with one of the salespeople, and they spent the first 45 minutes showing them all these amazing cakes and food and all this sorts of stuff, and then eventually, when there's 5 minutes left to go, said, right, well, what do you want to buy off us? And of course, what turned out was this person wasn't interested in the cakes at all, but just thought that this company may possibly have something else to invest, so may have something else that they wanted to make specifically for their range. And then this guy ended up pitching completely the wrong thing. So it's absolutely critical to give the person you're selling to a really damn good listening to because then you'll find out what they're interested in, and then you can then sell to what they're interested in. Ultimately, the investor needs to know what's in it for him. They say, look, I'm going to give you £50,000. What am I going to get out of it? And where's that going to end up? And then they've got to know that your idea has got, your idea could be brilliant, that it's founded on really solid principles and really good homework and research, that you've got a great team, and that you've got some real world data to back up. And especially if you start to make some sales, or somebody who means something has said they want to buy, or looking at buying, or doing a test, or something that makes them think, yeah, actually, that's the kind of thing which is adding up to the kind of story that I can think this could be big. If I'm pitching to an individual, basically I'll find out what they need to know, and then I'll try and answer their questions rather than the other way around. I mean, clearly there's got to be a little bit of sort of shaping out what it is, but if you're pitching to a room full of people, you don't really have a chance to interact with them. So what I find when I go to some of these pitches is, on the whole, the standard's actually pretty high of pitches that I see, but it seems to be they've sort of thrown everything in the kitchen sink into the pitch. And I often see these kind of death by PowerPoint style sort of presentations where the second last slide is sort of a snapshot of their whatever it is, their P&L over sort of 3 years, and it's just way too much information. So it's absolutely key that you cover the sort of core bases which I sort of discussed in any sort of proposal. What's the thing that's going to make it relevant to anybody listening to this? What's the sort of headline idea? What's the credibility statement? And then you go and you unpick some of the details, and you do a sort of nice summary. If you're going to use PowerPoint, then it's got to be to show somebody something which is going to really help them understand what you're saying. Otherwise, it would be far better, frankly, to get them listening to you rather than reading a lot of boring bullet points off a slide, which adds nothing to anybody.